All right, let's check it out, shall we? Okay, welcome into Rob Schmitt Tonight. I'm Bob Brooks, filling in for Rob. He's got the night off. President Trump, he has landed. We just saw him outside of the White House. He is back in D.C. from his state visit to China, getting off Air Force One less than about an hour and a half ago. We just saw he was trying to take some questions, but as Carl pointed out very studiously, he's probably a little tired. He's been traveling nonstop for the last couple of days. So let's get to it. How did the trip go? Well, as expected, there were a bunch of nice and cordial moments, right? President Trump, he arrived to a grand welcoming, plenty of pomp and circumstance all throughout the trip. Trump, he was even given a tour of the secret imperial gardens before he left. Isn't that nice? President Xi personally guided the tour. Only a few foreign leaders have ever been honored with that gesture. One of the others who have, a select few, Vladimir Putin. It's a big deal. Okay, President Trump clearly treated with a level of respect that very few others in history have been given when visiting China. But I think tonight what we're all wondering are, what are the results, right? How did we Americans, how did we benefit from this big trip? And most likely, we won't see what becomes of much of that until probably some time goes by. Plus, Chinese leader Xi Jinping, he's coming here for a state visit in September. That was announced. And many of the conversations, they're going to continue. That's how this stuff works. That's how it goes. So let's do this tonight. President Trump, he took a bunch of questions aboard Air Force One while on his way back. So what I would like to do is take a look at what he's already said about the trip. Let's start generally and with some of the immediate deals that have been worked out.
We had a great stay. It was an amazing period of time. President Xi's an incredible guy. Got along, made a lot of great trade deals, including over 200 planes for Boeing with a promise of 750 planes, which will be by far the largest order ever if they do a good job.
Could be a good start to something. You'd like to see that. There was also a deal cut, according to the president, on soybeans. Good for agriculture.
Did you get a deal on soybeans? You know, the farmers...
Yeah, the farmers are going to be very happy. They're going to be buying billions of dollars of soybeans. Yeah.
Now, if you're like me, you also saw the 30 of the top business CEOs. They tagged along for the trip. What happened with that, right? Well, here's a little bit of that. It's reported now that U.S. has cleared the H200 chip sales to China. And that's from firm NVIDIA. Their CEO is looking for breakthroughs. The U.S., they cleared around 10 Chinese firms to buy NVIDIA's second most powerful AI chip, that H200. Didn't give them the best one that we have. Also, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent says he was working with the Chinese on forming a board of trade to facilitate whatever kind of deals may have been struck over there in Beijing.
Forming a board of trade for the bilateral trade between the U.S. and China, and we're going to talk about a board of investment that will be responsible for investment in non-sensitive areas.
Okay, so we'll see how that goes. Let's get on to the other big topic, Iran. China, Iran's biggest oil customer. They buy 90% of Iran's oil. They get about 15% of their total oil from Iran. So obviously, look, they got involvement in this war, like it or not. And from the Gulf region in total, China gets about 40% of all their oil. So here was President Trump on the Strait of Hormuz and what the discussions were like between he and Xi Jinping.
I'm not asking for any favors, because when you ask for favors, you have to do favors in return. We don't need favors. We've wiped out their armed forces, essentially.
And the president also added this when it came to the ceasefire. We might have to do a little cleanup work, maybe a little bit more fighting. I don't think any of us would be shocked if that has to happen. All right, on to drugs. You tired of seeing people OD in the United States on fentanyl? Like seeing neighborhoods, this is called Kensington, Philadelphia, where people... This isn't even the worst of what you'll see there. The people right there, they dope up in front of kids as they walk home from school. How do I know that? Because I've seen it happen personally firsthand when I used to work there. The chemicals, they largely come from China, right? So stopping it's been a priority for the president, and here he was on that.
Did you talk about fentanyl at all?
I did. I talked about fentanyl. As you know, I put a tariff on because of fentanyl, and they discussed that. But I put a penalty. It's a penalty. A lot of money we take in. We because of that. I'd prefer not taking it, and I'd prefer that we don't have, but we did talk about that tonight.
There was also the issue of Taiwan, right? Apparently, this was the biggest sticking point for China. They want it. We protect it. Why? Taiwan produces the most advanced computer chips in the world by volume. That's where it comes out of. And the president's kind of tight-lipped on that one, though. He kind of, well, he offered this.
Taiwan, he does not want to see a fight for independence because that would be a very strong confrontation. And I heard him out. Are you going to say your word? No, I didn't make a comment on it. I heard him out.
And lastly, there was also a lot of reporting on this, that China's President Xi saying America is in decline. Now, you hear that, and I was kind of scratching my head. How's that possible when under President Trump we've secured trillions in domestic and foreign investments? You know, why would companies or foreign countries invest in our country if that was the case? That doesn't make sense. Also, the U.S. stock market making all-time highs. Our last jobs report from April beat expectations by 70,000 jobs. The only issue I think we kind of have right now, and most of you will agree with this, it's Iran and oil prices. And I do believe the president, he is right. Once that's over with, inflation does come down quickly. And then you're looking at probably one of the best economic scenarios ever for the country. And meanwhile, we stopped a bunch of radical Muslims from getting their hand on a nuclear weapon and starting World War III, because that's what would have happened. Took a lot of guts to do what President Trump did with that. Anyways, here was the president clarifying the reporting when it came to that topic.
He made a statement. It might not have been from him, it was somebody, but they talked about the decline. But he said today, and he said it very publicly, he said the U.S. was declining for the last 4 years. And he said what President Trump has done in the last 15, 16 months has been virtually a miracle. He said we have the hottest country anywhere in the world. But he said that it was a declining country under Joe Biden.
Sam Brownback, he's the former ambassador at large for international religious freedom. He's also the author of the book, China's War on Faith. He joins us now along with Carla Sands, chair of the Foreign Policy Initiative and senior fellow for energy policy at the America First Policy Institute. Pleasure to have you both on tonight. Good to see you. Carla, I want to start with you. Let's start dissecting this trip here. I kind of laid it out with a bunch of those sound bites. Like I said, I think it's hard to read right now what actually becomes of this. And then Xi comes back in a couple months. It's September. So what are your big takeaways right now?
Well, I think that he got a magnificent welcome by Xi. I don't think there's been ever a state visit in the world that's been so grand and so, I would say, you know, honoring the leader of the free world. And it was amazing, monumental. And I'm sure President Trump will put on a great welcome for Chairman Xi as well. But I have to say, I'm pretty old fashioned. I remember when we had the Soviet Union and when we were in that Cold War with them, and they were not as dangerous as the Chinese Communist Party controlling the PRC. We would not have been doing this, and we would not have been encouraging more trade back and forth. And I'm okay with us selling some energy to China, but to put Chinese business or investment here or vice versa, I think it's dangerous. I just think that until there's a regime change there, it's dangerous. It's not, you know, this is not the Soviet Union of my youth. Well,
we know that, like I pointed out, 30 executives went on that trip. So obviously we are looking to get into that market to some degree. Sam, how are you reading this?
I'm reading this that both leaders got out of this what they wanted. I think that overall they were just trying to start a conversation again and try to get the boil temperature and the temperature going down. And I think that was achieved. You had respect shown from Xi Jinping to the President Trump, and President Trump returned it. I think there was some commercial deals that were going on, and you're trying to get this temperature down and showing the world that the two leaders of the largest countries and the largest militaries in the world can talk. That happened. I am with Carla on this. I don't trust the Communist Party of China whatsoever. What they're doing to their own people and the persecution that they do to their own people is dastardly. And I'm glad we're talking. I think we need to talk. I think that needs to take place over time. But also over time, I think we've got to be very clear-eyed. This is a clear and present danger for us that's tougher than the Soviet Union was.
Carla, talk about the involvement China has with Iran. I pointed out the oil, but I know it goes much deeper than that. There's military cooperations between the two countries, and they're trying to increase that and their presence in that region.
Yes, and that's why President Trump asked Xi to please make sure the Strait of Hormuz opens and that Iran would never get a nuclear weapon, because China is now sending by train supplies into Iran. And so Iran can continue to build their missiles and continue to restock their munitions. And that's dangerous, because our men and women are out there in harm's way working to defeat this mullah regime, which has said death to America every day. And we do take that seriously. I'm so proud of what President Trump is doing, getting the world in a safer place. But I will just say, I mean, the official speech by China's leaders have been very aggressive toward the United States. And I want the United States to continue to be safe. President Trump has us in a very good place because he's rebuilt our military, because our patriotic spirit is back, along with our economic boom. We are living in the golden age, and it's only going to get better as the cost of energy goes down. But he's doing everything he can to make the lives of the American people better every day. And so I appreciate that he's out there boldly calling every world leader and having a good relationship. I agree with Senator Brownback. That is a really important thing.
Yeah, I don't think there's been a president, at least in my lifetime, that I can remember, more just pro-America, Americana, protecting the military and our citizens all across the world. You look at the work he's done. It's been tremendous. We got to leave it there. Carla Sands, Sam Brownback, appreciate you both. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Coming up, Democrats, they downplay Islam and Sharia law being incompatible with the United States Constitution, which it is. Trust me, they don't see an issue with it. However, I do, and I'm sure all of you watching have an issue with it as well. We're going to talk about that next with Texas Attorney General and U.S. Senate candidate Ken Paxton, who is having to fight it very often down in the Lone Star State. That's coming up.
Federal agencies urge every family to have an emergency radio. During any disaster, electrical power may get cut. The emergency radio gives you the vital information you need. Newsmax wants you to have the Dynamo Emergency Band Radio. It doesn't need batteries and works in any emergencies. It retails for $30. You can get it with the free offer. Call or go online and get the emergency radio today. Your life may depend on it.
Mike Hammond of Signal Relief. We've helped nearly 700,000 feel relief in their back, shoulders, and knees with our technology. But for many of us, it's our feet that hurt. And when they hurt, our walks get shorter, activities are skipped, and the moments we love start slipping away. That's why we created the Signal Step, a patent-pending insole built using the same proven technology people already trust from Signal Relief. Signal uses no drugs. There's nothing on the market like it. It's relief without the side effects. It's reusable, fits virtually into any shoe, and in a recent study, over 85% felt relief, and it comes with a money-back guarantee. So what are you waiting for? Feel relief with every step. If you're hurting, go to signalstep.com and get relief today.
For pain in multiple spots like here, here, or here, Salonpas patches stick firmly and remove comfortably once your pain is gone. Salonpas. It's good medicine.
Millions of Americans rely on a statin to reduce cholesterol, but statins can deplete CoQ10 levels. I recommend Cunol CoQ10 with 3 times better absorption and the #1 cardiologist recommended form. It helps replenish what statins deplete. Cunol, the brand I trust.
Are you aware that the Constitution of the United States does not establish a religion? Are you aware that it doesn't mention God?
So the Declaration of Independence mentions God 4 times. We do need to acknowledge our Christian heritage in America. That's what I'm trying to do.
You can acknowledge whatever heritage you want, but you can't impose an establishment of religion on other people. Everybody can acknowledge their own heritage. Do you agree with that?
American heritage, not just any heritage, is what I'm saying.
Oh, you don't think that you're allowed to acknowledge your Christian heritage or your Jewish heritage or your Muslim heritage?
I'm saying you members of Congress need to acknowledge American heritage.
Yes.
I like that a lot, that kid. American heritage. That, of course, was the insufferable Jamie Raskin getting embarrassed by that high school students. That was during a GOP-led House Judiciary hearing on why political Islam and Sharia law are incompatible with the United States Constitution, and how Sharia law's rise in our country poses a grave threat to our way of life and the system of government. Well, Democrats racing to defend the Islamic takeover of the West, calling it a conspiracy theory, racist and bigoted. Can't even bring it up. Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal, with her suicidal empathy, that's on full display, arguing on the side of Islam. Of course, though, you are not surprised by that. Here it is.
It is bizarre to me to listen to this hearing. Honestly, now we've suddenly made all mosques the beachhead of terrorism across the country. This is a very important religion around the world, and certainly here in the United States. Islam is a very, very important religion.
No, I just don't think we want Americans practicing Sharia law in the United States. Ken Paxton, he's the Texas Attorney General and U.S. Senate candidate for Texas. He joins us now. Mr. Attorney General, it's a pleasure to have you on. Good to see you.
Hey, thanks for having me back.
So I know you have been fighting this tooth and nail down in your state. That Epic City thing, that big Islamic development, Sharia law there, kind of even trying to creep its way into schools in some cases, I've read. So talk about what you're up against.
Yeah, so all of a sudden it's kind of a big issue. We're defending against the Muslim Brotherhood, who sued the state of Texas over some of the things that we were trying to accomplish by the governor calling them a terrorist organization, which they are. We stopped a Kaufman County development, which is just east of Dallas, that was trying to impose Sharia law and discriminating against non-Muslims moving in. We've also sued, as you mentioned, over the Epic City problem, which we think is a real problem because, as you suggested, it's not being Muslim, it's following Sharia law.
That's it. Yes.
And if you're not going to follow our state laws, our federal laws, and our Constitution, then guess what? You're in the wrong country. All we ask is that you follow our laws. You can worship however you want to. And you're right, it's also infiltrated some of our public schools. We've been able to get some of that stuff canceled where they had like a sporting event only for Muslims. So it's gotten a little crazy, and some of these governmental entities have tried to participate, but we're watching it. And I think it's very important. We've seen what's happened in Europe, and we've seen what's happened in some of these states like Michigan. And we're just not going to let that happen in Texas.
Now, Ken, the words you just said right there, you're watching it. The way I understand how this works, and this is largely what just happened across the sea in Europe, as you just mentioned, is they kind of just start doing it, right? And then it's up to vigilant eyes to be aware that, oh, this is happening. This is coming into our school. Oh, there's a development coming up in Epic City. They're going to practice Sharia law. They just start doing it, whether we know it or not, and then you got to come in and kind of rescue things.
That's exactly right. They just start doing it. And it seems like Texas is a target right now. And they're testing us to see how much we're willing to put up with. And as much as we can, we deal with it. I mean, if we find out about something that relates to Sharia law or they're not following our laws, we're going to address it. If it's just about their worship and their faith, they can do that. They're authorized by our U.S. Constitution to worship however they want to. They just have to assimilate with our laws. And that goes from the Constitution down to our state laws.
Let's get to this. President Trump, he is still weighing his option in the current Texas Senate runoff. As you're aware, you're up against GOP Senator John Cornyn. Here's what the president said earlier this week when he was asked about the race that you're in right now. Let's listen.
I'm looking at it very strong. I like them both. I think the Democrats have a weird candidate. 6 genders, a real hit on Jesus. I mean, this guy is bad news. I do believe either one of them will easily win the race. I think that the candidate the Democrats have in Texas is a very flawed, very weak, I think he's a pathetic candidate.
Yeah, super weird, James Tallarico. But back to your race. Ken, we got some polling from the University of Houston. They're actually showing that you're ahead of Senator Cornyn by 3 points, 48 to 45. Small margin, though. What's your message to Texans tonight?
Look, my message is simple. This guy, John Cornyn, has been in office for 42 years. Since I was in college, and I'm 63. He's running for a 5th term, which no one's done in Texas history. And I've spent the last 14 months on the road asking one question. What good thing has John Cornyn done? Not just in the 24 years. I'm going to give him the whole 42 years that he's been in office. What one good thing has he accomplished? And asking that question in every meeting I've been in, from one person to thousands, no one's ever given me an answer. And then I say, take any 2-week period I've been in office. John Cornyn can pick it, and I will have accomplished more in 2 weeks than he's accomplished in 42 years. We need somebody that will deliver for Texas, somebody that will go fight. And John Cornyn's not that guy. He is not Ted Cruz. As a matter of fact, he cancels his vote often, and he certainly doesn't fight for Texas.
Gonna leave it there. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton, sir, always a pleasure. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you. Have a great weekend.
You as well. Okay, coming up, a new report shows an alarming decline in reading rates for our kids over the past 10 years, signaling a reading recession across the country. Our kids can't read. That's what I just said to you all and what I read on the teleprompter. More on that fiasco coming up next.
We've been building chainsaws for over 100 years. Now, that century of cutting comes in a mower. New blade, same bloodline. Right now, save $50 on select mowers. Steel.
Nobody wants to put a new roof over their head. It's too expensive. And if they can extend the life of that roof and get 5 more years or 10 more years, it's a no-brainer.
What RoofMax does is it helps people in that they don't have to spend that $15,000, $20,000 on a new roof. They can spend pennies on the dollar.
The RoofMax product was a small percentage of cost of replacing a roof.
Get your roof treated now, but pay later, with no payments for a full year.
What if you're sick at home or traveling and can't get medical help or prescriptions? Doctors say a medical emergency kit is the answer. Joining me is Dr. Drew.
Thank you. And yes, these kits put you in charge of your health. They come with physician-prescribed medication to treat multiple common and some serious issues as well.
What are some examples?
Sure. Generic Z-Pak, amoxicillin, other essential antibiotics and antivirals that treat flu, pneumonia, strep, ear infections, sinus infections, urinary tract infections, and more.
So it is like urgent care and a pharmacy at home?
Exactly. No waiting, no pharmacy, no co-pays. You feel better faster and avoid serious complications.
How do you know what medicines to take?
You just match your symptoms to the doctor-written guide or schedule a quick telehealth call.
Sound advice. Order online in minutes at the website below and save $45. Thank you, doctor.
Visit urgentcarekit.com/news, promo code news.
At Bright Star Care, our nurse-led care anticipates needs before they are voiced. We'll be there.
Did you know about 1 in 3 people with plaque psoriasis may also develop psoriatic arthritis? With fewer symptoms from moderate to severe plaque psoriasis, where would you go? Imagine being 1,000,000 miles away. With Tremfya, clearer skin is possible. And for adults with active psoriatic arthritis, Tremfya goes beyond the skin. Less joint pain, stiffness, and swelling is possible. And Tremfya even reduced fatigue. Serious allergic reactions and increased risk of infections and liver problems may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check you for infections and TB. Tell your doctor if you have an infection, flu-like symptoms, or if you need a vaccine. Imagine being 1,000,000 miles away. Ask your doctor about Tremfya.
Okay, welcome back in. Got some breaking news. The Supreme Court rejecting a last-ditch effort by Democrats in Virginia to try and revive their unconstitutional gerrymander that would have given them an additional 4 seats. This is a major loss for Hakeem Jeffries and the crew. Republicans now have the clear upper hand in the redistricting battle as we head into the midterms. Not going to get the new map. All right, the new study showing this country is in a learning recession, looking at test scores from 3rd to 8th graders from over 5,000 school districts in 38 states. Reading rates have been constantly declining since 2013, predating the COVID pandemic disruption, performing worse than their peers over a decade ago. Education Scorecard reports author Tom Kane, he attributes social media and lack of testing as two factors leading to the decline in those reading scores. Other factors, the report said, included student absences and lack of literacy reforms. So the kids aren't going to school. Only 5 states, Louisiana, Maryland, Tennessee, Kentucky, and Indiana, also D.C., has had meaningful growth in reading test scores from 2022 to 25 due to the schools teaching with a phonics-based approach known as the science of reading. That seems to be working. And despite spending over $28,000 per student, which is a 66% increase since Gavin Newsom took office in 2019, out to California, ranked now 29th in academic growth. Basically what I'm telling you is we're raising a really dumb generation of kids, and it is not good, okay? You got to put this into perspective. This is the future. They can't read. Alexandra Bougher is the ambassador for Moms for Liberty. We also have Jonathan Butcher, acting director for Center for Education Policy at the Heritage Foundation, joining us now. Pleasure to have you both on. Alexandra, we keep talking about this over and over again. Test scores coming in, whether it's math, science, reading. The kids are dumber than they previously were now. So what is going on?
Well, unfortunately, this is not shocking. This is something we've been calling out for quite some time. And instead of listening to parents, they called us extremists for just wanting phonics in the classroom, for wanting transparency, for wanting a curriculum that had to do with academics. And the data is just showing what moms have been saying for quite some time. Our kids cannot do another decade filled of experiments and ideology. This is really scary. This is not just an education crisis, but a national security crisis at this point. I
agree with you.
We don't want them running the world. They're our future, right? So this is pretty scary.
This is a national security crisis. I totally agree. If we want to remain the most powerful country in the world, our kids have to be smart. That's how it works, and we have to progress, only we're going in reverse. Jonathan, why, in your opinion, do you think this is happening?
Well, remember, in California, the efforts to adopt the science of reading were opposed by teacher unions. Unions actually made it more difficult to improve reading instruction in California. And so in states where they are adopting school choice options, unions have also been fighting these new opportunities. In states such as Florida, just recently, they have tried to stop school choice there. So I think the efforts in Louisiana, Mississippi, and Florida to adopt the science of reading, but also adopt provisions that would prevent third graders from moving to fourth grade if they can't demonstrate proficiency. All good policies for lawmakers to consider nationwide.
So while we're in this learning recession, this is what Randy Weingarten, Jonathan, you brought up Teachers Union. Well, she's the president of the largest teacher union in America, and she'll go to all these rallies and stuff. I wonder why she is there. Why are you even there? And then she says this kind of stuff.
I think we have to make it easy for somebody to see hope and light instead of seeing fear and darkness. Because in this era, authoritarians, dictators or feudalistic lords, they rely on fear, division, apathy, and isolation.
Feudalistic lords? See, seriously, she's in the education system. What is she even talking about? I'd feel a lot better if she came out and said, our kids will be the best at reading and in math and in science. But no, she's talking about that, which is like social issues, woke stuff.
Unfortunately, we have organizations like the Southern Poverty Law Center who even have an education arm in some of the curriculum in our schools. Learning for Justice, for instance, where they teach white privilege or LGBT plus. And this is what they're focusing on. So, unfortunately, they do not have our kids' best interests at heart. They want our children dumb. They want them to not question things, to not be able to be critical thinkers. This is how they control them. This is how they groom them. So, they're doing exactly, what they went out to do. If you actually look at, just for an example, the New Jersey teachers, they had a summit this year. 80% was about drag queens, was about social justice, was about free Palestine. That's it. Where's the English? Where's the math?
You know,
we need to put our children first.
20 years ago, if you would have told me, oh, there's this big conspiracy to make sure our kids are dumb so they can be controlled, I would have said, yeah, that is a conspiracy. I agree with you. I actually was going to say that very point when you were done speaking, but you did it for me, and then I said it anyways. We got to run. Alexandra, Jonathan, I appreciate you both. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, talking about this coming up, CIA Director John Ratcliffe, he visits Cuba as the U.S. pressure intensifies. So what's next for the communist island nation that's only 90 miles away from Florida? Talking about it coming up.
When you're in the news business, it never stops. News is always breaking, and it's my job to get you the news, no spin, no BS. If you don't believe us, just watch us.
Watch Finnerty, weeknights, only on Newsmax.
Kevin Sorbo here, and I have an important message to share. The government needs more money, your money. If you owe the IRS back taxes, they can garnish your wages and levy your bank accounts. They can even seize your retirement or take your home. Don't let the IRS target you. Call the professionals at Tax Network USA. Their tax lawyers and enrolled agents are experts in powerful programs that may even help you eliminate your tax debt.
Call for a free consultation or visit tnusa.com.
He's breathing. Okay, we're good.
Nearly 5,000 people die from choking each year. That's frightening. I'm Dr. Ben Carson.
And I'm Arthur Lee. Well, there are ways to help prevent choking. Accidents do happen. That's why I invented the Life Pack.
Anyone can use this device, and it can save a life in seconds.
Just place, push, and pull. It's that simple. Please order one for your home, office, car, anywhere you eat.
Go to lifehack.net or call 877-543-3822.
There's a rhythm that picks up when life slows down. When you have ATTR cardiac amyloidosis, there's still beauty to tend, still joy to gather and give. It's about living for what you love and not letting ATTR-CM define who you are. Attruby is an oral medicine proven to help adults with ATTR-CM live longer and have fewer hospitalizations due to heart issues. Attruby helps slow the progression of ATTR-CM. Tell your doctor if you're pregnant, plan to become pregnant, or are breastfeeding, and about the medications you take. The most common side effects were mild and included diarrhea and abdominal pain. If you have ATTR cardiac amyloidosis, ask your cardiologist if Attruby is right for you. Time to get busy living.
Summer is coming fast. Now you can get your best summer body in just one visit to Sono Bello, America's #1 cosmetic surgery specialist.
This summer, I'm excited to not be covered up.
I've got abs again. Sono Bello put me in the right spot to just feel good again.
I feel beautiful. I went from this to this in just one visit.
I feel confident. Micro laser technology permanently removes stubborn fat, tightens and tones skin in just one visit with less downtime.
My shirts were extra large. Now I'm wearing a bathing suit. It changed my life.
There's no more frustration, just permanent results.
My stomach is gone.
Sono Bello has over 50,000 5-star reviews and expert surgeons. Call now for your personalized consultation. That's over a $250 value. Free. Easy monthly payment options make your best body more affordable than ever. Step into summer with confidence. Call Sono Bello today.
This holiday weekend, we're kicking off summer with actual 5-star reviews of Bob's.
I love the cloudy feeling of the recliner. Marvelous. The couch of my dreams. Oh my Bob!
Welcome back. I'm Bob Brooks, filling in for Rob. The U.S. pressure on Cuba, it intensifies. The CIA Director John Ratcliffe, he led a delegation to Havana to meet with government officials as the country nears total collapse. The Cuban officials claim that they used the meeting to make the point that their country does not constitute a threat to U.S. national security. President Trump, we know he has leveraged the United States power to restrict foreign oil shipments to Cuba, also increased military and intelligence reconnaissance flights around the island. Sources also stating the United States is planning to unveil criminal charges against Raul Castro, the former president of Cuba and brother of the infamous Fidel Castro, this Wednesday. The charges would be in connection with Cuba's deadly shoot-down of planes operated by humanitarian group Brothers to the Rescue. That happened 30 years ago. Let's talk about it. Dr. Michael Savage, host of Savage Nation, joins us now tonight. Doc, good to see you.
It's a big question and an important one, obviously, because it's an island nation that's been at the front of threatening us in a way back to the John F. Kennedy showdown. I believe it was with Khrushchev when missiles were put on the shore. Let me put it this way. I love the Cuban society. I love the Cuban people, the Cuban cuisine. I grew up on Cuban music.
The culture, all of it. I get it. Yeah, I spent a lot of time in Miami. I picked up on some of it.
Yeah, it's important people understand that this is not a strange country to me. I also have property in Florida, but we have to remember that this country was ruled by a Stalin-esque character named Castro and his brother, I guess this side of the book,
there he is,
for so many years. And after they achieved their goals of the revolution, they started to kill off their own compatriots who fought in the revolution with them because they were not communistic enough. In fact, Castro originally said he was not a communist, according to my reading of the entire history of the Cuban Revolution. He said he was not a communist in the beginning. And then, of course, once he took power, he became a naked communist, and some of his cohorts who fought alongside him were put in prison, and some of them killed. So it's a very dangerous regime. The people are starving. There's no medicine on the islands. There's little food on the islands. I have friends in the Miami area who send money to Cuba, or when they go visit their relatives, they bring food and medicine.
Yep.
The people are starving to death. Now, having said all of that, the last thing America needs, in my opinion, is a military adventure in Cuba at this time. We already are stretched thin with a war in Iran, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know what the Trump administration is thinking. The CIA director being there is a good sign. It means that they are negotiating something. I'm wondering, and this is the thing that how could we ever know? During the meeting between Xi and Trump, did they work out a deal saying, we won't butt into your area of interest, your sphere of interest, Taiwan. You don't do anything with Cuba, and tell your friends in Russia not to do anything with Cuba either. We'll do what we want with Cuba. You do what you want with Taiwan. I don't know if that trade was made. It'll never come out for a long period of time. If they did make that trade of Cuba for Taiwan, hands off both, that would be like trading a Rolex for a Timex. Because,
yeah, I think Taiwan's a little bit more valuable. Now, I'm not saying in terms of human and people, but I explained earlier in the show what comes out of Taiwan, and that's our chips. That all comes out of there.
Right. And I have to say this, and I taught this for years as a broadcaster. When the ancient Romans had their legions all over the world conducting wars here and there, the average Roman didn't care where the legions were and who they defeated. They cared about the pebble in the shoe, meaning the cost of leather for their sandals, the cost of wheat in the market. That's what they cared about, just like Americans really do not care about our foreign military adventures. They care about the price of gasoline and the price of food. It's the same thing all over again. So I'm praying that President Trump takes the high road, maybe offers a trade package, which is what we're hearing now, aid rather, an aid package, and the people can thrive. Because, Bob, the last thing we need in this country is another Mario boat invasion. We don't want to collapse the economy in Cuba. That would be a disaster because they'd be flooding over here, coming into Florida. We cannot tolerate it because we couldn't support them.
Well, clearly something's happening, or else the CIA director wouldn't be there. I'm with you. It is expensive, and that is crushing people, and that's not lost on me for so many families across the country right now. I did a story earlier on the network. Foreclosures are starting to creep up here. There was a bunch of them last month in the latest reporting. You hate to see that, so we got to leave it there,
right.
though. Yep, Dr. Savage, got to leave it there.
Thanks for having me on this Friday, Bob.
Always good to see you.
No bad idea brainstorm is what I'd like to call it. We talk about the idea of Supreme Court reform, which includes expanding the Supreme Court. We invite a conversation about multi-members districts. Let's talk about statehood for Puerto Rico and D.C. These are the things I think that we've got to do. We've got to neutralize these red states from cheating.
Sounds like someone or a party desperate for power. That's what it sounds like to me. Kamala Harris with some brilliant ideas calling for Democrats to hold a no bad idea brainstorm. after the Supreme Court decision on redistricting and the Republicans' push to redistrict the South. Her brainstorm session, as she put it, would discuss abolishing the Electoral College. You heard it, packing the Supreme Court, making Puerto Rico a state and D.C. a state as well. Like I said, these are the kind of moves and things you hear about from Democrats all the time when they appear to be desperate, which they are very much so right now. We're going to talk about it with someone who knows all too well, Dick Morris, advisor to President Trump, joining us now on set. Dick, always a pleasure. Good to see you.
Well, when they're desperate and they're making changes like that,
that's right.
It's good to see.
That's right. The polling must be coming back not in their favor.
Well, they're trying to pack the Supreme Court.
Right.
They're trying to pack the Senate with the 2 extra states.
Right.
They're trying to pack the House by reapportionment. Can't they win any elections?
No, they can't. They just got to rejigger things so they can try and hold on. Let's get into the meat of it here. We were just discussing this before we started. So we've got 4 governors across the country. They all got something in common. They are Republicans. It could help the GOP Congress tremendously. So we have Henry McMaster of South Carolina, Tate Reeves, Mississippi, Kay Ivey, Alabama, Jeff Landry, Louisiana. For example, the Democrats would like these 2 maybe could lose their seats. That is South Carolina's Jim Clyburn. Also, Mississippi's Benny Thompson, who chaired the J6 committee. He was in charge of it. Governors Tate and Reeves, McMaster, they can put them into early retirement. What we're saying is redistricting based off of the Voter Rights Act and this decision from the Supreme Court. What should they do, Dick?
Well, the court said it is illegal, unconstitutional, to elect people from districts that are drawn specifically to encourage black representation. That's not just a bad idea.
You can't do it on race. Right.
Yeah, and they've all agreed they can't do it in 28. But they're hoping they can squeeze in one more illegal election.
Right.
Come on, just give me one chance. I'll be better next year.
Just get that one primary, the last one here.
And the 2 guys who they're most anxious to protect are James Clyburn, who is the only Democratic congressman from South Carolina.
Right.
And Benny Thompson, who is the hitman.
Mr. J6.
Who's in charge of the J6 committee.
Yes.
And both of those folks will probably lose a real election. But in carefully drawn districts, they're okay.
Right.
And the Democrats
so you're saying tell these governors, these Republican governors, get on it, do the redistricting.
Yeah.
And you also feel very confident about the midterms.
I do. But about the redistricting, what they're really saying is let us do one more illegal election.
Right.
Come on, just one more.
One more, so we can kind of hang on.
That's right.
Maybe our person the next election down the road can get in the White House.
In terms of the election coming up next year, I am absolutely confident Trump is going to win that. I've been confident for a while. Now I'm super confident.
So
half of it are the lines, the majority-minority district decision is crucial. And the reapportionment in Florida and the rejection of the gerrymander in Virginia, all of that's crucial. But even if they're with the old lines, Trump would still win.
Oh, really?
I mean, the economy is very good.
Yep.
The gas prices are higher, but so what? The main thing is that Iran won't get the bomb.
Right, right.
And the gas prices, everybody knows they'll come down.
So even without the redistricting, you are totally confident, and you've gotten this right before. You've spot on with the past couple elections. Well, that's reassuring to hear you say that, Dick. I like to hear it.
Good.
All right, Dick Morris, it's a pleasure.
Thank you.
Okay, coming up, the left coming to the defense of Christopher Nolan after he capitulated to woke Hollywood's ridiculous Oscar diversity demands in his new film, The Odyssey. Achilles is going to be a trans person, everybody. That doesn't seem historically accurate. It seems insane, and that's some of what we're going to talk about coming up in News from the Left.
So people that are saying that Helen of Troy could not possibly be played by a black woman.
Yep, that's there.
Is the gauge supposed to say empty?
You can't trust those things. Don't worry, we're tethered for safety.
Asking the right question can greatly impact your future.
Are you certified for this?
Technically, no.
Especially when it comes to your finances.
Do you have a question?
Are you a certified financial planner?
Yes, I'm a CFP professional.
CFP professionals are committed to acting in your best interest. That's why it's gotta be a CFP. Find your CFP professional at letsmakeaplan.org.
For pain in multiple spots like here, here, or here, Salonpas patches stick firmly and remove comfortably once your pain is gone. Salonpas. It's good medicine.
If you want to be ready for summer, now's the time to call Sonobello. Sonobello helped me target the spots that diet and exercise never could.
Sonobello gave me my bikini body back.
At Sono Bello, our expert surgeons remove stubborn fat permanently and tighten loose skin in one visit with less downtime. Every treatment plan is personalized for your body, your goals, and the results that you want to achieve.
Walking around this summer with my shirt off, it's the best decision I've ever made.
I see my spark back, and I am so glad that I went with Sono Bello because they have truly changed my life.
With over 50,000 five-star reviews, Sono Bello is America's #1 cosmetic surgery specialist.
I love wearing a bikini again and not having to cover up.
See what's possible for you. Schedule your free consultation today. I got my summer body at Sono Bello.
Get your summer body back. Do this for you.
And our flexible payment options make it easy to get started today. Call now or go to sonobello.com for your free personalized consultation. It's your life. Live it beautifully.
Some wireless companies say that they stand for something. What exactly do they stand for, and why won't they say it out loud? Let me tell you what Patriot Mobile stands for. They stand for the lives of the unborn. They stand for the Second Amendment and the right to protect yourself and your family. They stand for our veterans and first responders who sacrifice so much for our freedom. Make the switch to Patriot Mobile today and support a company that doesn't just say they stand for something, but one that stands for the things that matter the most.
To the victor go the spoils!
When Caesar Slots gives you a getaway, they go all the way. 2 tickets to a luxury Caribbean cruise. Download Caesar Slots for free now and get a chance to win a luxury cruise. Flights included. New winner every week.
I still love to surf, snowboard, and of course skate. So I take Cunol Magnesium to support my muscle and bone health. Cunol's high absorption magnesium glycinate helps me get the full benefits of magnesium. Cunol, the brand I trust.
If you still have bad breath by lunchtime, your mouthwash isn't working. Smart Mouth is the only mouthwash that prevents bad breath for 24 hours. This is the only mouthwash I recommend. Upgrade your mouthwash to Smart Mouth today and never have bad breath again.
All right, welcome back in. Time now for news from the left. 60 Minutes releasing a preview of an interview with Christopher Nolan, trying to do some damage control for the British-American filmmaker after the director capitulated to woke Hollywood's ridiculous Oscar diversity demands in his new film, The Odyssey. So Nolan, he's confirming now that Kenyan actress Lupita Nyong'o will play Helen of Troy, known in mythology as the world's most beautiful woman, and for whom the Trojan War started, if you know that story. Also, critics fearing that the casting of this person, a transgender actor, as Elliot Page as Achilles, the greatest warrior, macho man of all time. Elon Musk blasting the filmmaker Christopher Nolan for some of his diverse casting choices. He posted this on X. Chris Nolan desecrated The Odyssey so that he would be eligible for an Academy Award. The left-wing Variety is defending Nolan, though, saying that Elon Musk and his troll army attack aren't. The attacks from the troll army just are silly, but are wildly inaccurate as well. Adding this, in recent days, Twitter trolls have formed a phalanx and pointed their psoriasis squarely at The Odyssey. Okay, well, the View's Sonny Hostin also chiming in with this to say.
Classical Greek culture is heavily indebted to Afro-Asiatic and Near Eastern roots. I actually taught Greek mythology to 8th graders. And so I covered this.
Fun fact.
So people that are saying that Helen of Troy could not possibly be played by a black woman don't know history.
But what is...
Okay, we don't know history. Curtis Houck, he's the managing editor at Newsbusters. Hey, Curtis, how you doing?
Yeah, good, Bob. I definitely got my head on straight, unlike Sonny there.
So Helen of Troy is black now, and Achilles is a trans person, so a woman disguised as a man. That's historically inaccurate. Look, this is Hollywood doing Hollywood woke stuff, and now I think they have ruined one of the greatest stories in human history.
Yeah, absolutely. The Odyssey, I mean, it's fascinating. I mean, there's all kinds of cultural, things that revolve around Greek mythology. A lot of stories in pop culture are actually, modern plays of Greek mythology. People don't know that. First, Sonny Hostin, black, this is the same sort of thing that we see from the DEI crowd, that black women, black Americans built this country. We're the reason that we exist. I mean, this is the kind of divisive splitting of hairs that we're used to seeing from the left, instead of talking about how we all as humanity come together, or how multiple backgrounds came together to create the United States. It's a very similar sort of thing. And then an Elliot Page thing. the artist formerly known as Ellen Page. I mean, it's just a complete disaster. I mean, who is going to tune in to see that?
Not
Nobody
me. And I was
wants to
looking
see
forward
that.
to
I'm
it.
surprised Sports Illustrated did
Page,
not put her in the swimsuit edition.
We're supposed to believe that Elliot Page is going to rip through the armies here and kill everybody like Brad Pitt did when he was Achilles.
Hey, we have
in
CGI,
Troy.
Bob.
Huh?
CGI can do anything.
Also, let's get to this here. Moving on. So we got Eileen Wang, right, the Democrat California mayor, admitting to acting as an illegal foreign agent of China, resigning from her post this week. NBC News worrying about the racial backlash erupting online of all this, I guess. Advocates said they are concerned that this rhetoric is part of a long history of fear and discrimination that has proliferated for generations in regard to Asian communities, especially Chinese immigrants. Look, there's a Chinese spy here in the United States. I don't want to. This got nothing to do with being racist or anything. Chinese spy in the United States. Sorry, you got to go. Period. The end. That's it.
Yeah. People have been arrested in this country for being spies for all kinds of countries. And I don't think we've had the same sort of discourse regarding that, you know? And she admitted to it. She has pled guilty. So it's not like she's saying, I'm innocent, I haven't done anything wrong. This woman has come out and said that she's a
she cut a plea deal.
mouthpiece. Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, that's just utterly bizarre.
So what are they saying with this? So let's get this straight. What are they saying? That if a Chinese spy in America gets caught, you can't call it out?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's like the Wu flu situation.
What do
you know,
like,
we're going
do you
back to
understand
those
how crazy
days.
this is? Like, we're not supposed to call it out, just be like, a woman got caught being a Chinese spy.
We're not going back to 2020, you know, like the media playing these games, you know, President Trump, Cecilia Vega, infamous clip, yelled at him saying, why are you calling this a Chinese virus?
Well, that's
It's
easy
dangerous
because
to
it came
people."
from China. I don't care. It could have came from wherever. I would have called it that virus. That's because that's where it originated
Kenya,
from.
Australia, doesn't matter.
Don't care. Bob Brooks' house. If it came out of my house, I'd be like, yeah, well, they're calling it my virus. Well, I guess I leaked it, so I guess I got to own up to it now. I mean, that's how that works, you know. All right, we got to leave it there. Curtis Houck, good convo. Hope you have a great weekend. Good to see you.
You too, Bob. Thanks.
All right, the Trump administration cracking down on teen takeovers, right? Teens going nuts. Well, they got a plan for that. It involves going after the parents. We're going to talk about it coming up.
Closed captioning is brought to you by MagnaLife Pain Relieving Foot Cream to target neuropathy symptoms. The stabbing, burning pain in your feet is real. Here's what real customers have to say about MagnaLife Pain Relieving Foot Cream, the only thing that works for my diabetic neuropathy.
Available in foot care and diabetic aisles.
Don't kibble your dog.
Oh, hey, Dr. Marty.
Hey, Bat.
But what's wrong with this? It's premium stuff.
Let's check it out. It's still kibble, which means it's ultra-processed at extremely high temperatures that destroy the nutrients in the food. But at Dr. Marty, we gently freeze-dried premium meats, fruit, and vegetables, locking in their nutrients.
Never kibbled.
You got it, kid, and they're gonna love it.
At Ancestry, we believe every question about the past is a spark. And when curiosity strikes about the everyday lives of your family, we're here with answers only your ancestors can provide. How is your family woven into 250 years of U.S. history? Find out now at Ancestry.
Doctors say having a medical emergency kit is like having an urgent care and pharmacy at home. Let me bring in Dr. McCullough to explain more.
Most people know when they're getting sick, but waiting to see a doctor is often too late.
So the key is having medicines before you need them.
Yes, and it includes doctor-prescribed medicines to treat common and serious issues like generic Z-Pak, amoxicillin, antibiotics, antivirals for flu, pneumonia, strep, ear and sinus infections, UTIs, and more.
So it is like having an urgent care at home.
Exactly. No waiting, no pharmacy, no copays. You feel better faster and avoid serious complications and hospitalizations.
How do you know what to take?
Just match your symptoms to the doctor-written guide or schedule a quick telehealth call.
Great advice. I understand ordering is fast online, and we've put the website and $45 off code on the screen. Thank you, doctor.
Visit urgentcarekit.com/news, promo code news.
Your neighbor just paid an enormous amount for a new roof, but he didn't have to, and neither do you. Because Roofmax can add years of life to your current roof.
Here's how you know you have a problem with your roof. Black streaking, your roof looks rough, or granules shedding off into your gutters or showing up in your driveway. Your roof is wearing out too fast, and it's going to cost you a bundle. Roofmax makes your roof like new by strengthening and rejuvenating it.
Get your roof treated now, but pay later, with no payments for a full year.
Mike Hammond of Signal Relief. We've helped nearly 700,000 feel relief in their back, shoulders, and knees with our technology. But for many of us, it's our feet that hurt. And when they hurt, our walks get shorter, activities are skipped, and the moments we love start slipping away. That's why we created the Signal Step, a patent-pending insole built using the same proven technology people already trust from Signal Relief. Signal uses no drugs. There's nothing on the market like it. It's relief without the side effects. It's reusable, fits virtually into any shoe, and in a recent study, over 85% felt relief, and it comes with a money-back guarantee. So what are you waiting for? Feel relief with every step. If you're hurting, go to signalstep.com and get relief today.
Okay, finally tonight, U.S. Attorney for D.C. Jeanine Pirro showing a strong display of the Trump administration law and order agenda, announcing a summer surge aimed at reducing crimes committed by youth by prosecuting the parents of youths who violate curfew and carry out crime and takeovers in D.C. Hard to believe this even happens. Take a look.
Starting today, my office will aggressively prosecute parents under D.C.'s curfew law, and it involves contributing to the delinquency of a minor. And if you drop your kid off and you fail to supervise them or you let them skip school to join the chaos, you are going to face fines, court-ordered classes, and possible jail time.
About time. That is called accountability. Also, really, I think it's just normalcy, right? Not going to be a first world country with the future of our kids behaving like that. It's just not going to work. Something's got to give. Soft on crime, the Democrat way, the left's way, not going to work. All right, that's going to do it for us tonight. Rob, he's going to be back on Monday. Make sure to check me out on my show, American Agenda, with my co-host, Katrina Zish. 2 to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Monday to Friday, right here on Newsmax. You have a great weekend, everyone. Finnerty is next.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.